Welcome everybody, I am Todd Custom and we're going to do a very short tutorial on how to make a breast pocket for a shirt just like this one. And I know it's probably hard to see it, but I've got a whole pocket full of stickers right here, and I pattern matched it so well that you can barely even see that there's a pocket there. So I'm going to show you how to do this on a shirt right now. Now most shirt patterns should come with a pocket that looks like this, so we're going to show you how to make this work. We have this terrific Beauties and Brains fabric here, and let's say we were going to make a shirt out of this fabric, and I wanted this zombie holding a brain to be right in the center of our pocket. The way I would do it is, I'm going to put her face and the brain she's holding kind of right in the center. Now we're going to lose a little bit off the top, so keep that in mind. We're going to lose about maybe half an inch from the top. So keep that in mind as you're getting ready to cut this out. So now, all I'm going to do is just cut out around this pocket. And now we have our brand new pocket here. So these next steps are super simple, but it's just really important that you do it the right way. So I'm going to put a little ironing board on my table here. So first you're going to want to press your pocket so everything is nice and flat. Then you're going to want to flip the pocket over so that the top is facing you. Now I'm going to roll over about maybe 3/8 of an inch or half an inch of the top here. And I'm going to press this all the way across the top. Alright, so you should have something that looks like this now. Now, you are going to flip this over, and you're going to fold this down just a little bit past where you just ironed that. So I'm going to go about maybe 3/4 of an inch, and I'm going to press this right sides together. And I know this looks unusual, but this is how it's done. Now everything is pressed the way we need to, so we're going to do a couple of quick stitches and I'm going to show you how to do that on the machine right now. Now you can use any sewing machine you have, but I'm going to be using my Brother ST150 HDH, and this is really simple. So I'm just going to center my needle. So on this machine I just set it to 2, so now my needle is going to be in the middle. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to line my pocket up here, and I'm going to zoom in so you can see a little bit closer. So we have our pressed edge facing up, so I can see the right side of the fabric here. So what I'm going to do is line this up on my 1/2 inch seam allowance. And what I want to do is I'm going to do a back stitch off the back, and then I'm going to go forward just until I get past where we pressed that over, and then I'm going to do a back stitch. And I think I'm just going to go all the way off the back. Then we're going to do the same thing on the other side, but I always end up flipping it upside down here. So I'm going to do the same thing on the same seam allowance, except we're starting at the pressed edge first. So I'm going to do a couple of stitches, back stitch over that pressed edge, stitch all the way off the edge of the fabric, and then back stitch, and then all the way off again. Okay? Now that's it. That's all we have to sew for right now. So now I can clip my threads and clean up any loose threads that I have got going on here. And I'm going to take this over to my table and show you what's next. Again, you should have something that looks like this. Now what I'm going to do is turn this upside down. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut on the outside of these stitch lines here all the way up to this fold line, and then I'm going to cut all the way straight out to the edge of the fabric. And I'm going to zoom in real close so you can see what I'm doing. So I'm cutting about maybe 1/8 of an inch from those stitches right there, and as soon as I get to that crease of that fold line and I cut through it, I'm going to turn this sideways and I'm going to cut straight across where that fold line is until that's out. So it should look something like that when you're done. One more thing that does help is right on the tip of this corner, don't cut through the stitches, but you can very slightly clip out just a corner of that, and that's going to help your corners on your pocket look really sharp. Now again, I'm going to do the exact same thing on the other side where I'm cutting on the outside of the stitches till I get past that fold line. And then I'm going to cut from the edge up to that fold till this falls out. So I've got my pocket back on my ironing board. Now what we have to do is we have to turn this fabric so that it's all right side out. And I'm going to flip this over because it's a little bit easier. And I'm going to turn this as best as I can with my hands. And I've got a little tool here called a seam turner. And I'm going to use it to press the corners as square as I can up in the top there. And then I'm going to do the other side. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to press this so that stays nice and flat like that forever. So what we have to do now is do a top stitch across the top of this so that it's going to seal the back lining shut so that this won't flop open or anything like that. And now we have to do a top stitch across where that is there. So what that's going to do is it's going to lock this back lining into place so that this won't open up anymore, and it's going to stay nice and sealed shut forever. Okay, so we've got our pocket here, and I found a perfect color match of this green, which matches the color of her skin. So that's what I'm going to use for my top stitch. All right, now this next part is kind of tricky. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn our pocket sideways, and you can kind of see where the back lining is kind of through there as we press that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to line up my needle so it's about maybe 1/8 of an inch to the right of where that back lining is. And you can feel it through the fabric, so you can't really see it too well, but you can feel where it is. So what I'm going to do is a couple of front stitches, then I'm going to back stitch off the fabric, and then I'm going to go forward. And this one I usually do real slow, and I'm just kind of feeling where that lining is. And I'm going to go all the way across. Okay, now I can see it. And when I get to the other end, I'm going to back stitch off the edge and all the way through. Now let's see how we did on the back side. So I'm going to trim these threads now on the back. Actually, that's pretty good. So I noticed that I could have gotten a little closer to the edge here, but I'm pretty happy with that. That's not bad at all. And I didn't even like chalk it or anything. So now I'm just going to clean up any loose threads that I have. All right, so this is looking good. I always hit it with an iron after I do a top stitch like that just to set the stitches. And then we're going to flip this over so it's upside down. Okay, now I can see that this is not going to open up anymore because that's all locked up. And now we get to start pressing this into shape. So to press this into shape, I always do the sides first. And all I want to do is just match up this edge of where the edge of the pocket is with the whole side so that it's one straight press. I know it's kind of hard to see because my fingers are in the way, but when you press it, it's going to end up looking something like that. Okay? Now I'm going to do the same thing with the opposite side. I'm just going to line it up with this edge here. Now just so you can see how it looks on the front, it will look something like this right now, okay? Now, we need to do the same thing on the bottom edges. So kind of the same distance of fold over I try to do on the bottoms too, so that you get a nice clean point. So I'm going to try to do about 1/2 inch or so of a fold over, and then I'm going to press it. And then same thing for this last bottom corner. And if you did a good job, which I don't always do, you'll see that the point at the very bottom should be right in the very center. And you can always just iron this flat and start over if you made a mistake or anything like that. But you should have something that looks like that. And then I'm going to flip this right side up and make sure everything is laying flat. Actually, that looks pretty good. That is how I wanted that to look. So once it's right side up, I will press it one more time just to make sure that it stays in the shape I want it to be. And now we're ready to put this on our shirt and stitch it into place. All right, now let's say this was our shirt panel that we were going to sew our pocket onto. So I take our pocket pattern, and I'm going to fold this over where that line was, and I'm just going to draw a chalk line where the pocket's supposed to be, so I know where that's going to go. So hopefully you can see that white line right there. Now, I want to line up either the top of the pocket or where the top stitches are with that chalk line, depending on the look you're going for. Some people like it up higher, some people like it lower. Okay, so everything is all set up, so I can start pinning this into place for getting ready to sew it. So I always do a pin at the top, and if you're new to this, this isn't going to make a whole lot of sense, but I always position my pins in a way that's easiest to pull them out while I'm sewing. So I'll try to explain it in a moment here. I'm going to start sewing at this top right corner, and I'm going to sew down to this corner and then pivot and go here, here, and then we're going to end up here. So if I position this so that the head of my needle is away from where my stitches are coming from, I'm never going to get a needle that's going to jam into my machine. This isn't the most important thing, this is just for convenience. Alright, so we have everything pinned in place and we have one stitch left. So I'm going to do a back stitch here. We're going to go all the way around, and then we're going to end here with another back stitch, and then we are going to be completely finished with this. Alright, so I still have my green top stitch color up in here. So what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to do my back stitch up here in the corner and run just slightly off. Sometimes I'll do a double back stitch to make sure the pocket stays nice and strong. And I'm going to try to edge stitch as close as I possibly can to the edge of the pocket fabric. So I don't want to run off, but just very close. And as I get to my first pin, I'm going to pull this out early. And then I'm going to run all the way down to this bottom corner. Alright, now when I get to my first corner, I'm going to lift my foot and do a pivot. And then I'm going to line this up straight so that I can keep doing a nice edge stitch here. Again, I'm going to pull out my next pin as I get ready for my next pivot. Lift, pivot, lower, and stitch. Alright, here's my last pin, and as I come up to the last part here, I'm going to get ready to do a back stitch. So I'm going to go one stitch over, back stitch, 2 or 3 stitches, and then I'm going to go back up, and then back stitch, a couple more stitches. I want that to stay nice and strong, otherwise you don't want your pocket to start to rip and fall apart. So now I'm going to clip my front threads first on the front here and the front here, and then I'm going to flip this whole thing over, and hopefully you can see this, but I'm going to pull the back bobbin thread so that it pulls any thread to the back, and on the other side I'm going to do the same thing. So now any threads that were up front are now going to be pulled to the back of the fabric, so you won't see that. Now I can pull out my final pin, and this is completely done now. And again, if you have any of this fray check stuff, I use this on all kinds of stuff. So if I don't want those stitches to pop out, I'm going to put fray check on it just to make sure that stays nice and strong. And anywhere else I see that I think threads might come loose, I'll put that there too to keep anything from fraying. So this is done now. Now, just to show how this should look, you should have a pocket that looks something like this, and you can choose to do either 1 or 2 pockets. This shirt only has 1 pocket over here, but this is what you should have. Alright, you guys, that is how you make your very own breast pocket, and I did this tutorial to teach all the people that want to learn how to make their own button-down collared shirts. Just one more technique to help them get started. If you have any questions about this tutorial or any other videos I've done, please let me know in the comments. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video.